Some houses are just that, houses. Plain walls, ordinary stories, nothing more. But some? They breathe. They remember. And what they remember is far from peaceful. Behind their doors, something waits, something that never left. These homes are not just creepy, they're drenched in horror. Whispers in the dark. Cold spots where no draft should be. Eyes watching you from places no one should be standing. And sometimes, what you find isn't a ghost at all, but something even worse. In some, people vanished without a trace. In others, twisted minds carried out experiments no one was meant to survive. These houses don't just give you chills, they grip you. They trap you. Because once you know their stories, it's hard to forget. So tonight, we're opening the doors you were never meant to find. We're stepping inside the world's most disturbing homes, the ones with pasts so dark, they almost feel alive. And trust me, once you enter, you won't leave the same. Some houses feel wrong the moment you see them. Old walls. Cold air. A silence that presses against your chest. In the quiet commune of Coronova, just east of Lake Como, such a place exists. Locals call it Casa del Streg, the House of Witches. It was never meant to be a place of fear. Built in 1857 for Count Felix Day, a respected officer in the Italian National Guard, it was designed to impress, to symbolize strength and legacy. But before the roof was ever finished, something went wrong. The mansion's architect, Alessandro Sidoli, died without warning. Some say illness. Others say it was something else. Either way, the house had claimed its first life. At first, things seemed normal. For years, the Day family lived in peace, until 1862. That night, Count Felix came home to a horror no one could explain. His wife was dead, ripped apart. His daughter, gone without a trace. No witnesses. No evidence. Only blood, and silence. Theories spread fast. Some called it a robbery. Others whispered something far darker, that his daughter had done it, and vanished into the night. But the truth? Still missing. The Count never stopped searching. And the mansion never felt whole again. Eventually, the family left, during the chaos of World War II. By the 1960s, no one would go near it. The House of Witches stood empty, rotting under the weight of everything it had seen. Graffiti marks its walls now. But deeper than the paint are the rumors. People speak of rituals. Candles burned in secret. Circles drawn on the floor. They say sacrifices happened here. They say something ancient was called into those halls, and it never left. Still, the curious find their way in. Urban explorers. Thrill seekers. They all say the same thing, you're never alone in that house. Footsteps in empty rooms. Cold breaths on warm skin. A presence that watches, but never speaks. The House of Witches is silent. But silence doesn't mean safe. It means listening. And in Coronova, something is always listening back. High above the cliffs of Nuevo Leon, Mexico, stands a lonely house. La Casa del Dolor, the House of Pain. It looks abandoned. Weather-beaten. Broken. But it wasn't always this way. In 1955, it was built with purpose. Scientist Eduardo Aguero Peña had a vision, though no one knew exactly what it was. He said he needed solitude. Silence. A place far from the world. But when Eduardo and his family moved in 5 years later, the silence was shattered. Locals began to hear it, screams. Long, violent, human. They echoed down the mountainside like something was being torn apart. People grew uneasy. Some believed Eduardo had lost his mind. Others feared something worse. The truth? It was horrifying. Eduardo had infected himself, on purpose, with pinta, a rare, tropical disease that eats away at the skin, leaving open sores and searing pain. He wanted to feel it, record it, understand it. But in doing so, he brought agony into his home. What kind of man would do that? What kind of mind breaks itself just to understand the breaking? Eventually, the screams stopped. Eduardo survived, but the family vanished. The house was left to rot. By the 1980s, there were talks of restoring it, turning it into a museum. That never happened. And maybe, it was never meant to. Today, the House of Pain is a shell. Cracked windows. Empty halls. But the air still feels heavy. Visitors say they feel watched. Others hear faint moans behind the walls. Like something in pain never truly left. And one question remains. Why did Eduardo walk away? Was it the torment? The guilt? Or did he discover something in that house that went far beyond disease? No one knows. And to be honest, I'm not going in to find out. Some houses are whispered about. Others are feared. But the Mong ghost house, it's something else entirely. Tucked deep within the overgrown forests of Hamong, Taiwan, the Liu family mansion stands in silence, rotting, crumbling, and wrapped in creeping vines like nature itself is trying to hold something inside. It hasn't been lived in for decades. But it's never been empty. The story begins in 1929. A wealthy businessman, and a sudden disappearance. The entire Liu family, gone without a trace. No bodies. No answers. Just silence. But by the 1950s, the whispers grew louder, fueled by scandal. Locals say a maid, young and quiet, had an affair with the patriarch of the house. When his wife found out, rage turned deadly. The details are murky. Some say the wife snapped and killed the maid in cold blood. Others say guilt drove the girl to the mansion's old stone well, where she drowned herself. But one thing's always the same, her body was found in that well. And her spirit never left. The well is still there. It's water thick, unmoving. People claim to see something drifting just beneath the surface, ash gray, shapeless, always watching. Some say it's her soul, unable to rest. Others say it's something worse. Soldiers once stationed nearby refused to go near the mansion after dark. They spoke of cold drafts in sealed rooms. Lights flickering. Doors slamming shut. And, most haunting of all, a woman's scream echoing through the night, rising from the well. Even today, thrill seekers come hoping to feel something, anything. Most don't last long. But just across the road, a tiny cafe serves tea and pastries under warm lantern light. Laughter spills from its windows, just steps from the haunted house. A strange contrast, but maybe a fitting one. Because even in the shadow of death, life goes on. And sometimes, it sells tickets. And speaking of chilling places, there's one more you need to see. Not far from Lancaster Castle in England, a drone recently captured something strange, what many are now calling the Castle of Witches. Hidden for years, its dark towers finally re-emerged, stirring old fears. What happened there? No one really knows. But if you do, let us know in the comments. Because some stories aren't over. Some houses never forget. A town covered in ash. Smoke rising from the cracks. Streets that lead nowhere. It sounds like a nightmare. But in Centriia, Pennsylvania, it's real. If you've ever played Silent Hill, you've seen it, fog thick in the air, a town that feels abandoned, but not entirely empty. That's fiction. But the inspiration? That's Centriia. A place that's been on fire for over 60 years. It began in 1962. Officials were trying to clean up illegal dumping, so they set a controlled fire at the town's landfill. They thought it was out. It wasn't. Days later, smoke returned. Then again. And again. No one knew why until they looked deeper. A hidden tunnel beneath the landfill had opened straight into the coal mines below. And the fire had slipped inside. Coal burns hot, and it doesn't stop. The blaze moved underground, feeding on endless seams of fuel. And the town above? It began to break. Gas leaked into homes. Trees turned black and collapsed. Sidewalks split open. Roads buckled. And in 1981, it nearly took a life. A 12-year-old boy fell into a sinkhole over 150 feet deep. He survived, but just barely. That was the final warning. The government stepped in. Evacuations began. Most left. But some didn't. A handful of residents refused to go, choosing smoldering ground and silence over giving up their homes. And even now, decades later, a few remain. The rest? Gone. Centriia is empty. The buildings have vanished. The streets lead nowhere. But deep beneath, the fire still burns. Experts say it could keep burning for another 200 years. No wonder Silent Hill was drawn to it. Because what's more terrifying than a ghost town? Still alive. Dolls are creepy. Mannequins? Even worse. But what happened at the John Lawson house in New Hamburg, New York, was something else entirely. It started as a normal home. Quiet. Ordinary. But the land it stood on had a history soaked in tragedy. In 1871, a train derailed just 200 feet from the house, exploding in flames and killing many. But the house? Not a scratch. Then, 6 years later, a fire tore through the town. Buildings were reduced to ash. Except one. The John Lawson house stood untouched again. Some said it was luck. Others weren't so sure. And then came the mannequins. In 2016, they appeared out of nowhere. Lifelike. Dressed in old-time clothing. Perched on the front porch in perfect stillness. One day, they'd be sitting quietly in rocking chairs. The next, they'd moved, arms raised, heads turned, like they were whispering secrets to each other. But no one ever saw them change. Not once. People started talking. Was it a prank? A performance? Or something else? Some believed the spirits of the town's dead had found a home in those figures. Others were convinced someone was moving them in secret, someone obsessed, watching from the shadows. But whoever, or whatever, was behind it, never came forward. For years, the mannequins kept changing. Always different. Always unsettling. And then, just as suddenly as they arrived, they disappeared. No warning. No farewell. Just an empty porch. Silent again. Were they a message? A memory? A warning? No one knows. But if they ever return, New Hamburg will be watching. And this time, the world might be watching too. Hospitals are unsettling by nature. Fluorescent lights. Cold halls. Silent fears. But an abandoned hospital? That's something else entirely. In the heart of Liverpool stands New Park Hospital. Its windows are shattered, its walls peeling, and its past unspeakably dark. But it didn't start as a hospital. In 1874, it was built as an orphanage. And like many institutions of the Victorian era, it was more punishment than care. Discipline was brutal. And in the attic, there were cupboards. Not for storage, but for children. Each just big enough to lock one inside. Alone. In the dark. The orphanage closed in 1954. But the suffering didn't stop. The building was converted into a psychiatric hospital, housing some of the city's most fragile minds. Then, in 1992, disaster struck. A nearby asylum shut down overnight, and every patient was transferred to New Park. The facility couldn't handle it. It buckled. And by 1997, it was abandoned. But something stayed behind. Since then, New Park Hospital has become a magnet for ghost hunters. But even the brave don't stay long. They talk of voices, soft whispers when no one's speaking. Of footsteps that follow you down empty halls. And shapes that flicker just out of reach. Then there's the photo. It was taken during a guided ghost tour. An empty hallway. At first, it looked like nothing. Just shadows. Until someone looked closer. In the background, a figure. Barely there, but unmistakable. The tour group? They swear no one was there. No tricks. No costumes. Just something standing in the dark. Coincidence? Maybe. But some places feel like they never wanted to be left behind. So if you ever find yourself near New Park Hospital after sunset, don't look back. Don't take pictures. And whatever you do, don't go inside. High in the mist-covered hills of Costa Rica, one building still breathes. Not with life, but with memory. Sanatorio Duran was born from desperation. In 1918, Dr. Carlos Duran Carton built it as a last hope, for patients, for progress, and for his own daughter, who had fallen ill with tuberculosis. He believed this isolated place, wrapped in mountain air, could save her. It didn't. She died within the very walls he built to protect her. And from that moment on, the sanatorium was marked. For decades, it treated the sick. Tuberculosis. Mental illness. Nuns ran the facility with tireless care. But the suffering never stopped. Patients faded slowly, lost in quiet rooms, buried in fog. As medicine advanced, the need for the sanatorium faded. But the building remained. For a time, it was an orphanage. Later, a prison. Each chapter darker than the last. Then, in the 1970s, nature struck. A volcano erupted nearby, searing the land and damaging the hospital. Sanatorio Duran was finally abandoned. Or so people thought. Because the silence left behind? It doesn't feel empty. Locals speak of shadows that move when no one's near. Of whispers slipping through cracked windows. Of cold spots that cling to your skin like breath. And then there's the photo. Published by a Costa Rican newspaper. A single, chilling image of a ghostly figure at the end of a hallway. Unmistakable. Pale. Still. Was it a spirit? Or just a trick of the light? No one can say for sure. But everyone agrees on one thing. Sanatorio Duran may have been built to heal. But something inside it never left. Some houses offer peace. A break from the world. But others feel like they were never meant to be touched. In the quiet hills of upstate New York, one such house still stands. The Crooked Wolf Villa. But no one calls it that anymore. Most know it by a simpler, darker name, the Demon Mansion. Its story begins in 1894. William O. Wolfe, a wealthy businessman, built it as a dream retreat. A place for his family to relax. A place to breathe. But the house had other plans. Before she even crossed the threshold, Wolfe's wife collapsed, dead from a sudden heart attack. Grief-stricken, Wolfe moved in alone. One night later, he was gone too. Same cause. Same fate. Same house. 2 deaths. Back to back. No explanation. Just silence. The house passed to Wolf's son. But it brought no peace. The Great Depression hit, money vanished, and by 1930, the family was gone. The estate sold. Stripped bare by contractors. Then left to rot. And for 70 years, it stood there, hollow and waiting. A skeleton of stone and shadow. Locals avoided it. Real estate agents gave up. Everyone had a story. Everyone felt the same chill. Some said the house was cursed. Others swore something lived inside, something that fed on fear, and worse. Then came 2022. A Florida investor named Ronald Clapp bought the mansion for $300,000. His plan? Turn it into a charming bed and breakfast. A castle for tourists. A fresh start. But can you repaint a curse? So far, the renovations are quiet. But history doesn't fade, it waits. And if the Demon Mansion is what they say it is, then the real guests haven't even arrived yet.